Hello and welcome to the Two Guys, One Roto Show. My name's David Whitcomb alongside my tag team partner, Rich Sayre. Hello, Rich.
Hey, Dave. Good to be back.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. It's been a long time since we talked, and by a long time, I mean like an hour and a half. So just so you guys, the viewers at home or listeners are aware, what we're doing this week is kind of a redux of last week. Last week we covered, it was our first redraft show. We tend to focus on longer term stuff most of the time, either dynasty or prospects or that kind of thing. But last week we said, hey, listen, let's just talk about some players, kind of head-to-head matchups. Rest of season, who do you got? Who you want to roll with? But for whatever reason, for no apparent reason, we ignored pitchers by and large. We had 8 matchups and only one of them was a pitcher. So we're making it up to the pitchers this week. So this week we're going to do 3 starting pitchers apiece and 1 closer apiece. And good news, we have a guest again. We did not have a guest last week, but we have a guest again this week. So we'd like to, we'll introduce him here in a minute. As always, Rich, who are we brought to you by? What's our home website?
I'd love to be part of the Fantasy Six-Pack Network. All your fantasy stuff there, all kinds of baseball stuff. That's near and dear to my heart. But whatever sports you're looking for, you can find it. Fantasy Six-Pack.
Yep, fantasysixpack.net. And as always, just be sure to subscribe to our channel, whether you're listening to or watching us on YouTube, whether you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter, on Blue Sky. As I found out, you can follow me on Instagram at the same handle. Had somebody reach out with some fantasy baseball questions there, and was happy to answer. So bottom line is you can see our handles. I'm at DW the Original. Rich, you are?
I'm at R Sayre 04.
And our Sayre 04. This week we're going to start, or I'm going to start, I'm kind of insisting on it, starting a funny baseball quote to start the show, like kind of in honor of Yogi Berra, so to speak, just some tongue-in-cheek stuff or whatever. I'm going with a little bit of a in the news quote this week. Pete Rose, obviously big in the news of late. And we won't get into feelings on Pete Rose, positive, negative, or otherwise, because that's it's a whole show in and of itself and a whole debate in and of itself. But I did find this quote entertaining. Everybody knows about Joe DiMaggio and his marriage to Marilyn Monroe and his lots of other extramarital affairs and all that kind of stuff, whatever. And Pete Rose was quoted as saying, the best way to describe Joe DiMaggio is a penis with a man hanging from it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And so anyway, on that note, we'd like to welcome our guest to the show, none other than Owen Hurd. Owen Hurd is from the great state of Indiana, and he is a contributor at Prospects Live and Scout Statline. Owen Hurd, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. Look forward to it.
Thanks for joining, buddy. And sorry you had to follow such an awful joke. So anyway, but all right. So bottom line is we're going to dive right in. What we did last week was just me and Rich kind of tossing them back and forth to each other directly. Obviously, this week with a guest, it's gonna be a little more free form. We'll toss in, a matchup out there, and so you're gonna get the first lick at this, Owen. So you're gonna toss one to me and Rich, and we'll talk about it for a couple of minutes, and then we'll get through it all and whatever. And I'm sure lots of debates will be settled permanently tonight. Owen, so you are our esteemed guest. Why don't you go ahead and get us started with a matchup, buddy?
Yeah. So just to pretext this, I want to say I did a lot of digging to try and keep these close. I have like 3 categories of starting pitchers. I feel like that I'm gonna go into. So
okay.
First, I'll start off with 3 breakouts. I've got Jesus Luzardo, Kris Bubic, and Bryan Woo.
So who was the last one? Jesus Luzardo,
Bryan Woo.
And Bryan Woo. Okay, gotcha. So we have to pick among those 3.
Yeah, it'll be 3 for the starting pitchers, and then I have 2 relievers.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. That's I like it. So Jesus Luzardo, Bryan Woo, and Kris Bubic. That's a tough call because I have similar concerns for all 3, and that being innings. Just because Luzardo, I think, has thrown over 150 innings once in his career. I can look it up here real quick. Bryan Woo, same thing. I don't think he's actually thrown over 130 innings, including in the minor leagues. And then Bubic obviously converting from reliever to starting pitcher, which is kind of the new fad. Same kind of thing. He's looked wonderful so far. I mean, he's probably been the Royals' best pitcher, even above Cole Reagan's. But same thing. I wonder, when we get into that 130, 140 inning range, how well does it hold up? What are your thoughts, Rich?
Yeah, similar thing. I'm a big fan of Kris Bubic in general. In a redraft, I am definitely concerned what the end of the season looks like. I mean, I do think the Royals will be in the mix, so it's not necessarily a scenario they're just going to shut him down, because why the hell not? He is an older guy as well. He's looking here. He's going to be he's 27 now. He's going to be 30 by the end of the season. Sorry, that's a big age. 28 by the end of the season. Not aging quite that fast. I love what he's been doing this year. I think the mix is legitimate, but I'm just concerned that they might try to slow him down a little bit towards the end of the season. Good toss up here. Obviously I like Wu as well. Performance has been very strong this year. I would have gone Luzardo if you hadn't brought up you hadn't reminded me of some of the previous injuries there with him. So, I think I'm probably going to go Luzardo. He's, I think, been pitching the strongest out of the group. Well, maybe not. I like the Phillies. I think they're the strongest team for wins. I would probably go Luzardo.
Yeah, and I'm going to tend to agree. Luzardo obviously has a checkered injury history. So does Bryan Wu, and Bubic obviously has never done it before. Luzardo has only done it once, but at least he's done it once. And he's on probably the strongest team of the three. So especially for, less so in like autonomy leagues or points leagues or whatever, but especially in like rotisserie category formats where wins are at a premium, Luzardo is probably on the best team of the three. So I'm leaning Luzardo there as well, but that's an excellent toss. Those are three very similar cases. So what are your thoughts?
I hate to kind of make it a consensus, but if you had asked me before the season, it would have been Wu, and I was very high on Luzardo entering the season. I thought he was a really good value pass. I think it was, I want to say in the 220s or 230s is where he was going at one point in off-season drafts. But I mean, I don't think it's crazy to put him in the NL Cy Young talks at this point so far.
No,
I mean, the sweeper, slider, changeup are all looking great. The whiff rates are great on those. He's also limiting contact on those. So I think that's why I'm also leaning that way. I think it's recipe for success. He's gone 170 innings before. I don't think it's crazy that he can get back to that again, health permitting. With Wu, I also have the health concerns. I don't really doubt talent with either of the three. Bubic, one thing I do want to note is he did do 130 innings twice as a starter before moving back to the bullpen.
Oh, did he? Okay.
So I don't think 150, 160 is completely out of the question. I do really like how he's looked so far. I mean, his fastball won't impress anyone velo-wise, but the break is really absurd on that. The peripherals back that up too. But I think, I'm also giving the edge to Luzardo. Peripherals also look good. The stuff also looks good. And I think it's more a case of we've seen it before.
Yeah, great. So, Rich, you want to give us our next toss? Or you want me to, buddy?
I could jump in.
All right.
I like what we got there, Owen. Appreciate that. I wanted to take a look at two kind of contrasting pitchers that to this point in the season have found themselves in a similar spot. So I'm going to toss out, who would you rather have rest of the season, Shane Smith or Jacob DeGrom? And the way that I tied those two guys together is if you look at Fangraphs WAR right now, they're both at 1.2 for the season. Coming at it from different perspectives, right? So Shane Smith's the Rule 5 pick. DeGrom's a Cy Young winner. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Owen, why don't you lead us off, bud?
I'll pretext this. No hate to Shane Smith, but this is very easily DeGrom for me. When healthy, that's become a big win in recent years. He is amongst the best pitchers in baseball. And I think I'm really encouraged just what we're seeing. The results still being vintage DeGrom, like even with kind of tapering the velo down a little bit, likely to preserve that health. I do still have some concerns about, what exactly are we getting from DeGrom? He's become a very hard pitcher to predict from an inning standpoint year after year. But I think, looking at it from the perspective, I do like Smith. I think, his changeup is one of the better pitches in baseball. I do think that he has a very good chance to end the season with a mid-threes ERA, solid ratios, and be, a very solid pitcher for the White Sox. But I think in terms of upside, DeGrom is really in a tier of his own. So even with just some of those health questions, with how DeGrom has looked so far, it's comfortably DeGrom for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's I actually have watched by circumstance and coincidence each of DeGrom's last 2 starts. The second to last start was the head-to-head one against Hunter Brown, which did not disappoint. They were, I think, shutties through 7 or something like that. Twin shutties, whatever. And then his last start was against my Yankees, and I think he was 1 Ernie through 7 or something like that. So I was actually meaning to mention to you, Rich. I don't know if this is before your time, Owen, but there was a Diamondbacks pitcher named Brandon Webb who went on an absolute insane run in it must have been 04 or something like that. And he ran away with the Cy Young, and just every start was appointment viewing. And DeGrom feels like he's trending towards that direction, where he's just going to go on the next 16 starts are all going to be 7 innings with 10 bunchies and 1 Ernie. So yeah, I like Shane Smith a lot. I'm a sucker for changeups because I'm a Pedro fan from back in the day. But this is pretty comfortably DeGrom for me as well. So bad pick, Rich.
Well, it's really, DeGrom's pitched about 50 innings the last 2 seasons. So, that was the real question.
50 more than Shane Smith pitched in the big leagues. I think. I'm
right.
actually not positive about that, but anyway. All right, so I'll give you guys my one to chew on. My first one is one that's near and dear to my heart. It's 2 emerging youngish pitchers, not super young, but one of them pretty young, but the other one's mid-20s. But so I've got Matthew Liberatore versus AJ Smith-Shawver.
I guess I'll start off. This is a fun one because I think really the fact that Smith-Shawver keeps this close, despite having pitched a very relatively short amount of time comparatively to other pitchers, I think he's very advanced developmentally and is going to be a very good starter for a long time. That being said, I'm going Liberatore here. Still has the prospect pedigree. Sorry, just really hasn't come together for him yet. I'm really encouraged with the revamped arsenal, and the stuff has looked really good so far. That being said, I don't think he continues this pace, but I think in terms of just who I'm more confident in rest of the season, he does get that slight edge for me.
Gotcha. Richard.
It's interesting. I have a Liberatore in my matchup as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
All right.
I probably go Liberatore here. Also, I think he's kind of just locked in right now, and we're talking again just redraft. Dynasty, maybe a little bit different story. I think he's not maybe going to be at this level consistently, but right now I think he's locked in. I think he could carry that through the rest of the season. And Smith-Shawver has been spectacular in some cases,
except for tonight.
Yeah. And he had a little bit of that last year as well. He had some really dominant starts, and then it kind of got away from him a little bit. So I think Liberatore is a safer move here, and that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah, Liberatore, Rich, and you and I were talking about Liberatore just a couple days ago or whatever, and I mentioned Kurt Schilling's quote about what's the on-base percentage of a walk is 1,000%, right? And that's Liberatore's real strength so far this year. He's not walking anybody. He's just not issuing any free passes, and guys who don't get on base can't score. So that's a good thing. So yeah. So anyway, so that was my toss. All right. So you got another 3-pack for us, I think, Owen.
Yes. So y'all took a couple of my names, so I think I might avoid the third one I had for starters. But
okay.
This one I have older aces. We have Max Fried, Nathan Eovaldi, or Kodai Senga.
So, all right, I'm going to start this one off. This one's tough for me to not go Max Fried, and it's not just as a homer pick, although it's partially a homer pick. But the guy's just been nails this year. But boy, I love Eovaldi. Eovaldi's just, in a different show and in a past life. One day we'll discuss my one-time Red Sox fandom that converted to Yankee fandom, believe it or not. But Eovaldi and that playoff run in, I think it was 17 for the Red Sox, was just so dominant and willing to do anything coming out of the bullpen. We're just never that guy will always have a place in my heart. Senga would finish pretty comfortably third in this argument for me, simply because a couple things. One, obviously he's coming off the injury, and pitcher is going to pitcher. It could get hurt again, whatever. And I'm reticent to say the Mets are a tiger fire right now, but they're a little bit of a mess. they're Metsing. So that's whatever. I would lean Fried. He's just been so damn good. I think I want to say the Yankees are undefeated in his start. Not that whatever, but I don't think they've lost a game that he started this year. And especially in roto formats and all that, the Rangers can't score, which kind of like the thing I was saying about runners who don't get on base can't score. Pitchers who don't get literally any run support can't win games. So yeah, I would go Fried here. It's not a slam dunk, but it's at least a layup for me. So what are your thoughts, Rich?
I agree. I think Senga is not is in the second tier of this conversation. I think he's got the talent. Hasn't had fantastic numbers so far this year, and the injury question. So that's what puts him to the side now. Eovaldi's got his own injury questions, and I think for that reason, I'm probably going Fried as well.
Yeah, those are more in the past for Eovaldi. Like, he has not been hurt of late. The last 2-3 years, he's been totally fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So yeah, and I think similar to Liberatore, it's I think Fried is locked in. I think he could keep this rolling for the good part of the year. Mm-hmm. I think you get enough run support with the Yankees. So yeah, I would go Fried at this point.
So care to share any additional thoughts on your own toss-up, Owen?
Yeah, so I'm gonna differ from you two here, and I'm gonna go with Nathan Eovaldi. And this is no shade to Max Fried at all. He's been amazing. I was fading Fried, admittedly, at ADP. That's a decision in hindsight that I do somewhat regret a little bit. The forearm injury definitely concerned me last season with Atlanta. And then add that to his list of injuries, and I don't really feel like every season with Fried, it's almost like it's not a matter of if, it's when there's going to be a stint on the 15-day IL. So I'm going Nathan Eovaldi here. I don't think I'd really be in this spot entering the season, but simply put, I believe this is the best we've seen Nathan Eovaldi. The chase, the whiff, the strikeouts, the walks are all better than Fried's. Under the hood looks a little better as well. So I also have a bit more confidence in the durability. He's gone, I believe, I want to say 145 and 170 innings the past couple of years. So I don't really have a ton of questions about the workload. And really, I think the stuff is just some of the best we've ever seen it. So really, I think it's really amazing to me is because there's not really a long track record of two-time Tommy John surgery recipients pitching this well into their late 30s. And Nathan Eovaldi really kind of defies that, and for all the I saw a post about this today, but really for all the Nathan Eovaldis, there's just as many Hyunjin Ryus, Josh Johnsons, and Jameson Tyones. So yeah, I mean, and also looking at it from a fantasy perspective, I think Fried, real life, you could make the argument he is the better pitcher and has been the better pitcher, but I mean, you're looking at under a strikeout per 9. The base on ball per 9 isn't as good as Eovaldi's. The expected ERA and the FIP are also a little higher. So I think both will eventually regress to the mean, but I think I'm going Nathan Eovaldi right now for ROS.
Yeah. No, I mean, you could pretty easily talk me into that. If the Rangers can get their act together and start scoring some runs, then whatever. I guess for me, if you were to just take the two pitchers and put them on the other team, although Eovaldi's previous stint on the Yankees was less than stellar, but that was a long time ago. If you were to put them context specific, just trade the two straight up, I would probably take Eovaldi too. I think a lot of my lean is team context specific. So, but yeah, interesting one. And then Senga, Rich, I just have to give a quick note that's kind of near and dear to your, not heart, but things that annoy you. Is I think Senga's the pioneer of we're gonna make up names for pitches. Like, doesn't he have like the ghost fork or whatever it's called? Whatever, ghost pepper.
I don't know that he made that up, but yeah.
No, I know that. I'm just saying, we have all these different names for pitches, the death ball and the kick change and all this stuff. And I'm not saying they're not things, but it's just I think Senga is the first pitcher I remember. Like, what the hell's a ghost fork? Anyway. Rich, you kicked off last time, so I'm going to give us our next one.
Yep.
And it's a pair of lefties, and one having something of a resurgent season, and one having an absolutely huge breakout season. So they are Carlos Rodon and Christopher Sanchez.
Interesting. Oh, am I kicking this off?
It doesn't. Go for it, or Rich can, or not me. How about that?
Okay. Oh god, this is a tough one. I think this is probably like closer for me than the first one that I brought up. God. I mean, like favorability says Sanchez. He's a guy that I've pushed the past year and a half or so. I thought he was really good value at ADP. I remember getting into it this offseason on X with Mike VA, who is fading Kris for Sanchez. Shout out Mike. He does some great content, so go give him a follow if you haven't already. But yeah, I remember giving him a bit of a hard time about that. But yeah, I think now, favorability aside, I've got to lean Rodon. I think just, in terms of, it's not really with Sanchez, it's a question of really, can he get to that, high-end starting pitcher 2 territory for fantasy. With Rodon, he's been there multiple times, and I think now is very much still back on that pace. So, yeah, I mean, ERA is under 3. I got to say, I was really a bit hesitant to go all in on Rodon this offseason, just having seen his Yankees tenure to this point. But he's really surprised me in a lot of ways. So I do think it's close. I do think you could go either way. But I think favorability aside, I would go Carlos Rodon.
Yep. So, Mr. Sayre.
I'm going to take the other side of this pretty comfortably for me. I have no ill will toward Carlos Rodon. I also have no confidence in him for any given start. And he's performing fantastically so far this year. I think he's been a little fortunate. I'm looking at the BABIP at 205. That's really the only thing that you can nitpick about, his actual numbers so far this year. But he's been dominant. We have seen this from him before, and you've seen it fall off before. So I just feel much more comfortable with Sanchez. I like the team context with Sanchez, and that's where I would go.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I like this one. This one was actually recommended by a friend of the show, Josh Traban. But this one's an interesting one just because, again, they're both on good teams. They're both, putting up strong numbers so far, whatever. Rodon, to your point, Rich, not trusting him from any one start. His last start of 2023, whatever the first year of his contract with the Yankees was the start that he recorded 0 outs and surrendered 9 earnings. And Michael Kay, the Yankees play-by-play guy, said it was the worst starting pitching performance he's ever seen. So he's come a long way. But Rich, you've got a toss up for us, sir.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it back a little bit. King of the Hill here. He's already withstood one matchup. I wanted to toss out Liberatore versus Spencer Schwellenbach in the battle of control artists. And a little bit of Liberatore, I think's got some flavor that Schwellenbach had last year, as in not particularly highly regarded and is performing at an extremely high level this year. So who do we think we want to take out of that matchup?
So I'm going to, did you want to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'm going to go with Schwellenbach here, and I'm going to say why is Rich, I'm a big Keith Law fan. And I'm going to say, 60 days ago, this would have been like Liberatore's not even guaranteed a spot in the rotation. What are we even talking about here? So I'm not necessarily going to let 60 days worth of baseball color my decision that drastically. But the fact that we're even having this discussion speaks to how well Liberatore has done. Jeff Passan penned an article today on ESPN. I'm sure he wrote it before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he had an article today on ESPN about how the Cardinals have the best defense in baseball, and that has propelled them to unexpected success this year. So Liberatore not only doesn't walk anybody, but he has a great defense behind him. Not to say the Braves defense is lacking necessarily, but it's not the best defense in baseball. But Schwellenbach, again, was in your Dynasty top 10 starting pitchers overall in the offseason. So yeah, I'm going to pretty comfortably go Schwelly, but also say that we might be flipping this discussion a year from now. Mr. Hurd.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of to go off on what you said, I think it's kind of interesting how quickly things can change in a couple months to where, there's not, you can put the two in the same conversation and it's not just, I guess, completely unheard of, or just like not like there's one is miles better than the other. But yeah, I think my lean is still with Spencer Schwellenbach. Not to say that I am a bit concerned. He hasn't really taken that jump that I thought he would take this season. The expected ERA is solid, not great, not really what we saw last year. The whiff rate on a couple of his pitches is down a little bit. The expected batting average is just over 280. So you do wonder if there's a bit of luck there, but I still think just with what he showed last year, the arsenal is still really deep. The control is still really good. I think entering the season, I would have had Schwellenbach as a top 10 dynasty starting pitcher. I think he's lost a little bit of ground for me there, but I do think I'm still taking him a bit over Liberatore.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because Liberatore has, as you mentioned earlier, the prospect pedigree of being, I think he was the 16th overall pick in the 20 whatever the hell draft, whatever draft he was in. He was the first round pick in whatever draft he was in. Whereas Schwellenbach was playing shortstop in college 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 4.
Yeah.
So so obviously maybe Schwelly's still learning a few things, but yeah. All right, you've got another 3-pack for us. Oh no, actually, I'm sorry. Before we get into that, Owen, you are, as I mentioned, joining us from Prospects Live and Scout the Stat Line. Why don't you talk a little bit about where you're from and what you guys do?
Yeah. So with Prospects Live, we've really got a great team over there. But I would just say, we have a great team on the fantasy side. They're pumping out some great fantasy baseball content, as well as the hobby side as well. Our draft team and pro teams do a great job covering the college side, as well as the MLB draft, as well as minor league prospects who are performing. We do kind of we're always pumping out articles pretty much daily on the site. Doc has got a weekly series that he's doing over there. Nate's always pumping out some good stuff. If you haven't checked out I'm sorry, Nate, if I'm mispronouncing this, but it is, I believe, the Dynasty Hierarchy Closer tool. This is to help you find future relief prospects and relievers in a team system that could become future closers. It's a great tool for Dynasty, especially in a very volatile position that is very hard to have a good position pool in. So that's a great tool over there. But yeah, I would just say we're covering all aspects of baseball and bringing you all sides of the game and all sides of the sport. No,
absolutely. Couldn't possibly recommend Well, okay. Everybody who's not in a league with me, I can't recommend Prospects Live highly enough. If you're in a league with me and you're not subscribing to Prospects Live, keep it up. So no, their content is borderline unparalleled. The Prospect Daily, whatever it's called, Daily Sheet, I think is what it's called, or whatever that you get in your email, is must read every day. And then the website, you guys used to be on Patreon, and then you have launched your own website this year. And the website's unbelievable. You can go there and look up any prospect or even major leaguer you want, and it'll give you the most recent, bits that they've written about him. Just absolutely staggering coverage. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. And it's cheap too, which is maybe me saying you should raise your price. I don't know. But yeah, can't recommend it highly enough. Rich, you got any thoughts on Prospects Live?
No, I agree with what you're saying. Love the content over there. It's there's something every day that's interesting to read. So you pop in there, make it part of your daily routine, and love what you guys are doing.
Yep. Yeah. And Doc, you mentioned Doc Eisenhower, also a friend of the show, who's on our show just a couple weeks ago. So anyway,
I heard that was a feisty one. Admittedly, I did not see that episode, but
it was. I wouldn't say it was feisty, but Rich on that show faded Paul Skeens, and Doc was horrified.
I would be too. But we don't have to get too much into that.
No, we don't. That's if you want to listen to that, I'm sure you can find it in the archives. All right.
I'm sorry. I completely missed half your question originally. So Scout Stat Line, we do the data.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah. If you haven't checked out the peak projections, those are a great tool. This tool helped uncover Kyle Manzardo a couple of years ago. There's a lot of kind of those under the radar prospects that have yet to boom that the peak projections have helped uncover. It's just $5 a month too. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck over there with those peak projections, especially in those 30-man dynasty leagues where the big up and coming thing isn't available. It's going to be, especially with pitching, it's going to be tough to find those guys. You are going to pay for a premium for pitching via trade. So that's a great tool. Also, couldn't recommend that more. But yeah, I'm from San Antonio, Texas originally. Go to school at Indiana University. Just finished out my sophomore year there. I'm working for Prospects Live this summer. I'll have some articles coming out pretty soon, so keep an eye out for those. And also, I'll be spending the summer with Wasserman. So very excited, busy summer coming up. I'm excited with what we're doing at Prospects Live and love the team over there.
Yeah, fantastic work, man. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Absolutely love it. So, all right, you want to toss out another one for us, Mr. Hurd?
Yeah. So this is this is a couple names we've already brought up, but I have AJ Smith-Shawver, Shane Smith, and Will Warren.
Those are good. That's a spicy meatball right there. That's a good one. AJ Smith-Shawver, Will Warren, Shane Smith. So I'm gonna put Smith third, because the White Sox have the least to play for, I guess is what it boils down to, right? So even if Shane Smith keeps up his current pace, they'll probably still shut him down at some point because they're going to, it's a future asset for them now, right? Like he's already shown enough to say he's part of their 2026 rotation unless he gets hurt, which, oh, by the way, people get hurt pitching all the time. So they shut him down probably at some point, whatever, and that stinks. So then for me, it comes down to Shawver, wow, that's a toughie. So, Rich, why don't you talk about it? Because I can't decide.
I think you have to go in a redraft Shawver. He's proven more than Warren has. He's got a similar, I think, upside to Warren, unless you're, really, really stretching, really optimistic about what he's going to give you rest of the season. So I think it's Smith-Shawver for me.
Yeah, so they were both late picks also. Shawver was a 7th round pick and Warren was an 8th round pick. So they don't, and like we were talking about with Liberatore, for example, being a 1st rounder and having that prospect pedigree, they're both kind of not pop-up prospects, certainly, but, I don't know. This is a toss, man. Honestly, I'm probably going to go Warren, and simply because the Yankees don't have the starting pitching depth in their system that Atlanta does, right? Like Shawver stunk tonight, and that's ridiculously small sample size. But what if he does it 2 or 3 more times in a row, right? They've got Bryce Elder down on the farm. They've got Hurston Waldrop, who's emerging maybe again down on the farm. Whatever. I mean, they've got some other options there. Whereas the Yankees, it's kind of Will Warren or bust. So the Yankees have a lot of intriguing young arms in high A, but those guys aren't coming up to help this year. And I'm a Yankees fan, and I literally can't tell you. Oh, no, that's not true. I was going to say I literally can't tell you one guy in the AAA rotation, but we did just sign. Oh God, what's his name? Some guy who used to be.
What an endorsement.
some hang arounder guy now. I can't even remember who it is. So anyway, whatever. So bottom line is, I'm going Warren simply because I think he stays in the rotation. He's more of a sure thing to stay in the rotation than Shawver. So Owen, any thoughts to share as well, or?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. I went back and forth on this one a lot. With Smith-Shawver and Warren, I feel like both are pretty close because, before tonight, with both Smith-Shawver and Warren, you're looking at very good months of May, not so much entering that.
Right.
Smith-Shawver, ERA under 0.5, 0.81 whip, 121 average against, 2.63 FIP. This is after being recalled, obviously not accounting for tonight's start.
Right.
And then with Warren, you're looking at 2.38 ERA. The strikeout rates are really good. It's just over 11.5 strikeouts per 9, I want to say. You're also both also have some hard contact issues, not really ground ball pitchers, giving up some hard hits. But I'm going to lean Warren here. I think the strikeout upside gives him that edge for me. I also like under the hood a little bit more. Smith-Shawver is he's leaving a lot of runners on too, so I think that's something that. Not really concerned about his long-term outlook, but in terms of this season, I don't really think this is going to be the Spencer Schwellenbach type season for him. With Will Warren, it may be a little bold, but I really think you could get that. The FIP is 2.84, xFIP 2.97, expected ERA just over 3.6. The left on base rate is a little lower. The strikeouts are there. You're not walking at an alarming rate, just under 3.5 strikeouts per 9. The stuff looks really good with Warren. And then, I think it's also important to just, like you mentioned with the team context, if Warren has a bad start or two, I I don't see an immediate threat to take his spot. But Person Waldrop has looked great this season. The fastballs look back. He looks like a completely different pitcher than he was last year. You've also got Drew Hackenberg down there in AAA as well. He could see some time this season. So, I'm also going Will Warren here. I think. Shane Smith definitely belongs in that conversation too. I think, just from a fantasy perspective, both the strikeout upside of Warren and Smith-Shawver put him as a third for me. But I like all three of these young arms longer term. So that's kind of why I picked this one. It's be like good discussion, and we'll have some differing opinions.
And I think it's also important to note that Warren is 3 years older than Shawver, which I think matters, right? Like it's he's more of a like. Smith-Shawver wasn't able to drink this time last year legally. 2 years ago, but whatever.
The strikeouts are really interesting to me with Warren because I'm looking at he's got a swinging strike rate under 10% and a chase rate under 25%, and it looks like he's just racking up the called strikes. So I don't know if that's a deception thing or something that might turn a little bit later in the season. I don't see how he's doing it so far. He's doing it.
Yeah. So,
I think to potentially answer that, if I can, I think part of that with Warren is just the whiffs he's able to get on his pitches. Near 27.5 whiff rate on a fastball is very, very good for that pitch. The sweeper near 35% whiff rate. He doesn't throw the curveball as much, but 56.5% whiff rate is absurd. So I'm less worried about kind of the lower chase and the swinging strike rate because he is still missing bats with those three offerings. So the curveball usage is a little down there, but he's got a 5-pitch mix at his disposal. So I do think that from a fantasy perspective, especially in points league, Warren does get that top spot for me.
Gotcha. All right, Rich, I tossed the last post Owen toss, so why don't you go ahead and give us one, bud?
Yeah. So I have a matchup of upstart cubbies, I'll call it. I want to know who you want to roster rest of the season, Ben Brown or Matthew Boyd?
Oh, that's interesting. I do really like Brown. I think the consistency does worry me a bit, though. He reminds me a bit of a Taj Bradley type this year, if that makes sense. As in, somebody who's going to give you a run of very, very good starts and then a blow up, and then, the narrative is kind of flipped. I still think I would lean Brown just on upside alone. And looking at Boyd's age and the innings he's pitched the past couple of years, I'm not sure he's someone I'm confident in to go 130, 140 innings. So, I think it's I do think it's one of those like potentially floor versus upside where I feel like Boyd at worst is maybe a back end arm. And then, I feel like Brown does have a little higher upside than that. Even if he's only pitching like a back end arm for now, I still like the stuff. I think, I've seen enough promise from him where long-term I'm still very in. So, I think this really just, I think Brown's upside just gives him that edge for me.
Yeah, that's, I would, wow. So I'm going to tend to agree with the caveat that in redraft, this is much, much closer than I would have ever expected it to be. So Boyd, though, to your point, I think he threw 50, 60 innings last year. And obviously I could literally click right here and find out. And that's how lazy I am. I'm not going to do it.
But 39 and 2/3.
39 and 2/3 innings last year.
In the regular season. Yeah.
Yep. But Brown doesn't have a lot of mileage on the arm either, although he is kind of like what we were talking about with Will Warren. He is 25 years old. I guess this is getting a little in the weeds here, but I guess the thing that would concern me a little bit with Brown is not a viability standpoint, but rather the Cubs are awfully good standpoint and might go out and get one of the best starting pitchers on the trade market and might move Brown to the bullpen. Just for the season, not to say necessarily going to do that with him forever, but like they could see him as a weapon out of the bullpen for the rest of this year kind of thing. But all that said, I think I agree with your take, Owen. There's so much more upside with Brown than there is with Boyd. And there's frankly more downside. I just said the downside with Brown is he gets moved to, the downside of every pitcher is their arm falls off. But the downside with Brown is he gets moved to the bullpen. The downside with Boyd is he's out for the season. So that's, I'm going to tend to agree and go Ben Brown. So, all right, Rich, you want to share anything or you want to move on?
I think Brown's very interesting. You love the knuckle curve, but he literally doesn't throw anything other than that on his four seam, and the four seam is not very good. So it's interesting that he can dominate from time to time with basically what I think is a single pitch that's above average. I don't know why he doesn't play around with even some variation of a fastball, sinker, or cutter, or something like that. But he hasn't been doing it lately. And I think your point is actually interesting. I can definitely see him moving into like a 1 to 2 inning role, fireman type role later in the season. So that would be my main concern. Yeah. The concern with Boyd is is he going to be there by the end of the year? As far as on the active roster, yeah.
Right. Yeah. To bring up your point about the pitches, I think another thing to note with Brown is that he does also throw that changeup that's looked a lot better this season. It's been exclusively against lefties so far, and like I said, very limited sample size, but he's throwing that at nearly 91 miles per hour with a 60% whiff rate. So I think, if we can get a bit more of that changeup worked in, I think it becomes maybe the floor is raised a little bit. The control and command has been better than I thought of Brown coming up. So I think that he does have that working in his favor. The walk rate is above average. And so I do think for now that, yes, I do think there's valid concerns that a trade could push him to the pen, but I think there's enough here that where I'm a bit more interested.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, you got two pitchers with downside for different reasons, but only one of them has upside. I think it's maybe a good way of putting it, right? And Brown's the one with the upside. So he's UPS. What can Brown do for you? Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go with my third starting pitcher matchup. And it's an interesting one. One is, as we talked about earlier, the latest fad in moving relievers to the starting rotation, which is just weird. If you had told me 5 years ago that was going to be a thing, I never would have believed you. And one is a guy who hadn't pitched in like half a decade and is pitching reasonably well so far this year. So Clay Holmes of the Metropolitans versus Dustin May of your World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Don't everybody talk at once. Why every time I toss one out, you guys don't want to talk. I either pick.
I love Dustin May in the abstract. I can't say I love what we've seen on the Fangraphs page so far this year. I think he's got some really interesting pitches. I mean, just crazy movement on some of the pitches. And until I think his last start, the strikeout performance wasn't really there. And Clay Holmes been playing well. Obviously, two, I think, pretty good teams. I'm not that worried about the Mets. I think they're going to be a solid team into the summer. I would I was going to say I would go May for not concerns from transitioning from reliever, but May hasn't put up more than 50 innings in years and years. So yeah. That is a tough one. I might have to reserve judgment. Owen, do you want to jump in?
Save my boy.
I think this one is really interesting because you're looking at valid question marks about the workload that each of these guys is going to handle. Yeah, Holmes being a former reliever hasn't started since I believe like early in his Pirates days, or even earlier than that. Don't quote me on that. And then obviously with May and the Dodgers, there are a lot of questions about the Dodgers as a whole, their ability to keep pitchers healthy. May has been really no stranger to that. I believe Tommy John surgery, I want to say, kept him out in 23. If I'm getting that right. They're both ground ball pitchers. I think May's stuff is slightly better. I guess if I had to lean, I would go Holmes. It's close. I'll say that, but I think that you're as good as May's stuff is, it really hasn't correlated to the strikeouts yet. So I think really strikeout wise, close. And I think I'll opt to I trust the Mets pitching development. They've done a great job just finding these reclamation project arms and then making them into relevant fantasy starters. I didn't really, I hated their rotation, quite honestly, entering the season. If you told me it'd be one of the best in baseball in May, I probably would have laughed. But
it's shocking.
Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing. It's like, they can turn Griffin Canning, who literally the Braves saw no use in, into a low 3 ERA starter. David Peterson. It's the unsexy but delivers results rotation. So I think if I had to lean one, it would be Holmes. I really liked what we saw from him in the spring. I think that he was one of those kind of obvious transition candidates, just having that really low ground ball rate. I'm not really nothing really under the hood really blows me away for either. I think you could really go either way, but I'm leaning Holmes.
All right, Rich, you didn't give us a pick, so give us a pick.
Yeah, I'd like to pick May, but I can't really get there. I feel like this year only, you may as well go Holmes.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Just to wrap this up real quick, if you are in a pitching ninja only fantasy league, then you pick Dustin May, and otherwise you pick Clay Holmes. Like Dustin May is going to have a sweeper that makes somebody look absolutely foolish, whereas Clay Holmes is going to give you 5-6 innings and 2 runs and it'll look pretty nice. So, all right, just real quick before we move on, I did want to mention, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. I was about to say I always almost forget. Is that something you're allowed to say? Owen, are you majoring in English, and are you going to tattoo me now for using that poor phrasing? I did want to mention.
I'm not an English major. No.
Okay. Gotcha. So I did want to mention, though, obviously, again, the show is brought to you by FantasySixPack.net, and I can't recommend it highly enough. Jump over to FantasySixPack.net, become an all-access member. You're going to get access to our award-winning rankings, projections, and custom league team advice via our Discord server. Rich and I answer questions all throughout the day while we're supposed to be working, so hopefully our employers are not listening to this podcast. You go to FantasySixPack.net/plans. and use promo code F6PMLB25. You're going to get 15% off. It's already a great value at its regular price. Saving 15% makes it an absolute no-brainer. So, again, FantasySixPack.net/plans. All right. So we've got our closers left to go. Owen, since you're our guest, do you want to lead this? Again, what does mean the poor phrasing? I was going to say, do you want to lead off our closers? You want to go first, or do you want to go last? You pick.
No, I'll start off. I got my 2 ready right here. So
let's do it.
I think this is a fun one because we've seen Emmanuel Clase and Devin Williams turn around as of late, but this has not been the year of the high ADP closer for fantasy.
Yeah.
So my 2 right here are 2 struggling tier 2 relievers for rest of the season. Are you going Raisel, Iglesias, or Felix Bautista?
Oh. I liked it better when you had 3 options. So I was talking to friend of the show, Scott Shields, today, who's a big Braves fan, about Raisel specifically. I do the closer chart at FantasySixPack.net that gets updated not as often as it should. I was writing about Raisel. I just kind of assumed. I looked at his home run per fly ball rate is like out of control high, and I was like, all right, that'll normalize. He'll be fine, whatever. But then I went to his Savant page. He's got his off-speed pitch or breaking pitch run value is -7 already this year, which is out of control for a relief pitch. Like you haven't even thrown enough pitches to be that bad. So that means the fastballs is every hitter can just lay off the breaking stuff and time the fastball. And that's the old adage about, a major league hitter can time a bullet if they know it's coming kind of thing. And sure enough, the contact is hard and it's loud and he's surrendering a bunch of homers. So all that said, if you told me the Orioles were going to win 62 games this year, I'm not sure I would take the over. I'm not sure where they're at right now, but maybe that is a little low, maybe 70 games. Anyway, whatever it is. And so same thing when I was writing up Felix Bautista just over this weekend or whatever. His peripherals aren't what they used to be. And the Orioles are really super bad. So I'm probably going to go Raisel simply because if for no other reason than unless he absolutely beyond belief implodes, there's no way that Brian Snitker is pulling him from the closer role. So I think he gives you more saves. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I was just looking at the numbers as we were talking about both these guys. For me, Bautista didn't look right earlier in the season, like the first couple innings, and I bailed out in our house league.
Yes.
And I'm looking at it now, and he's under 50% first pitch strike rate. He's under 50% zone rate, walking over 6 per 9. And the normal thing is, the control doesn't necessarily come back right away, even though it's been, I think, kind of an extended absence with the Tommy John. So that was my concern with him. But Iglesias getting hit hard. It looks like the slider is getting absolutely crushed.
Yep.
So maybe you just put that pitch away. The four seam, he's still 27% whiff rate, not as good as last year. Everything's down a little bit from last year, but maybe you hope for a little bit of luck on the fly balls, and some of those balls stay in the yard, and he gets you through the rest of the season.
Yeah. So, Owen, you want to share any thoughts on your own toss?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting because looking at a stuff perspective, both really there are some concerning signs there. I'll start off with Felix, but I mean, and this is obviously we don't have 2024 for Bautista, so there is a good amount of a difference here, but a lot can change in 2 years. But the sinker whiffs are down over in half, 37.8 in 2023, 15.3% this year. The batting average and slugging against that is also higher. The split finger is still performing really well. That is still a disgusting pitch. I think that does aid his case a little bit compared to Iglesias, where he has one pitch really going for him, where I don't really think Iglesias does right now. And then I mean, looking at looking at Iglesias, really, I mean, all the pitches have kind of regressed across the board. The changeup is getting hit more. The whiffs are down on that. The four seamer whiffs are also down, getting hit more once again. The slider is probably the one that concerns me the most. Near 42% whiff rate last season. That's just under 27% this year. So I'm going Bautista here. I expect the walk rate to improve somewhat as he distances himself further from Tommy John. I think outside of that, the velo is still elite. The strikeouts are elite. The ability to limit hard contact is also elite. I think there are some encouraging signs here for a reliever coming off an extended absence. So, and I also think that I do expect the Orioles team to pick it up to an extent, but I do think they're going to be in a lot of close lead situations with the team that they have now, with the pitching not being great, the lineup only being able to do so much. So, I'm leaning Bautista here. And also, I think that looking at the rest of the Braves bullpen, Daysbel Hernandez is knocking at the door. I don't think the Orioles have a guy that has shown that he can handle that closer's role. Cano is thrived as a setup man. Closer is a different story. So, I do think Bautista has a bit longer of a leash as well. So, I think that also gives him the edge.
And not to pound this matchup to death or whatever, but one thing I didn't think about when I was talking about Bautista is that, well, we're talking about the Orioles more specifically, is yes, they're struggling. That actually might work to Bautista's advantage. He's arbitration eligible this winter for the first time, and he's going to be 30 years old. And the Orioles might decide that potentially dwindling closer is not worth taking to arbitration, and trade him this summer. In other words, to a team where he then he flips the switch and becomes the mountain of old and whatever. I'm big into narratives, Owen. So who knows? He goes to, I can't think of a contender that needs a closer necessarily. The Cubs. He goes to the Cubs and
Red Sox. I mean, if they can ever get going to the team, they can be. Another one.
Well, Aroldis Chapman's been pretty good, but anyway.
That's fair. Yeah. Outside of that, my trust meter is low.
Yes.
Slayton has been good, but hurt.
Yes. No, that's true. So, all right, Rich, you want to go with the next? You go or I'll go with the next closer because I have a bonus closer for us to close out the show.
Okay.
So I'm going to go, and then you go, and then I'll close it out. So my closer one is a battle of the boroughs. I've got Luke Weaver against Edwin Diaz, and I can't even believe that this is even a debate. But I will give you guys a fun stat. Since the start of 2024, in win probability added, Luke Weaver is the third best reliever in baseball. So there's that. So Luke Weaver versus Edwin Diaz, go.
I guess I'll start it off, but yeah, I think from a fantasy standpoint, this is pretty comfortably Edwin for me. I think that Devin Williams was traded to be that closer. So long as he can continue pitching the way he has as of late, I do think he has that role pretty comfortably. So it's more of a, are you looking at a closer or are you looking for a setup man that's going to get you potentially lead the league in holds? Weaver has looked really good. Yeah, I'll give him that. The ground ball rate really hasn't impressed me, though. Giving up a good amount of hard contact. The walk rate is okay, not great. Diaz, on the other hand, same thing with the walk rate. The whiffs and the strikeouts are still elite. Not giving up hard contact, inducing a lot of ground balls. Under the hood looks really good. So yeah, it's Diaz for me. Weaver has definitely been great, but I think that generally speaking in fantasy, I'm more interested in the elite closer versus the elite setup man.
Sure. Okay. Richard.
I'm going Diaz. I didn't have to look, but I did look while Owen was talking. Weaver's got a 125 BABIP right now, a 92% left on base, which I'll give him credit. When you're the closer, the left on base is on you. So we'll give him credit for that. But even last year, 223 BABIP, I think he's just kind of outperforming. I don't think he's in the same tier as Diaz. So I'm going to go Diaz.
Interesting. Okay. Again, I feel like I'm showing like major Yankee homerdom during this show, which if you go to my pinned tweet on my Twitter page, I say that the Yankees are going to miss the playoffs this year because of the abject failure of ownership to put together a roster that's deep enough to survive a season. But I don't think you can toss it up Weaver versus Diaz. I don't agree that Devin Williams gets the job back. Devin Williams is a free agent after this year. And Todd Zeile during the Mets World Series run in 2001, if you remember Todd Zeile, the third baseman, was quoted as saying, "If it ain't broke, don't break it." And that's how I feel about the Yankees bullpen right now. Luke Weaver has been absolutely nailed for last year and then this year, and even in 2023 when they claimed off waivers and put him in the bullpen, he was good. And I don't see Weaver ceding the role. I think they're going to keep Devin Williams in the setup role. They have no real incentive to give him saves. It doesn't matter to them, So yeah, I don't. I think it's more of a toss up than you guys might think because I don't see Weaver ceding the role back to Williams.
I agree with that. I think even like probably best case scenario for the Yankees is Williams is back on fire and they just leave him in to face the tough part of the lineup and leave Weaver in the closer role. So yep. I think that's totally realistic for the rest of the season. But I just think Diaz is the talent level is
talent higher
than Weaver.
It's not even close. Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, give us your closer. We're running out of time.
So I got to write my timestamp down here, but I want to kind of mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
And this is going to apply really only if you're in a saves plus holds league. But okay. I thought it'd be interesting to toss out who do you want to roster? Jhoan Duran or Griffin Jacks, two Twinkies. Sorry.
Okay. I'm going Duran here, even though I am about the biggest Griffin Jacks apologist, whatever. I wrote about him. The closer chart also has guys for holds and all that kind of stuff at Fantasy Six Pack. And Griffin Jacks, I'm not going to remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but something like since April 23rd, since he last gave up multiple runs in an outing, he's got a sub-1 ERA, a sub-1 WHIP, and is striking out like 14.2 per 9. So he's certainly in the discussion for best relievers in baseball. That said, I think Jhoan Duran has the Twins have won something like 15 of 18 games or something like that. Mm-hmm. And obviously that's small sample size caveats, abound, but I think Duran has kind of turned into that reliever we thought he could be like 2 years ago. And the stuff or the results are starting to match the stuff. And I'll take the ninth inning guy over the kind of volatile holds guy. But what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Duran for me. Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the more underrated closers in baseball. Every year, it feels like he's this is going to be the year that Griffin Jacks kind of takes into his saves. But I mean, I think when you're looking at under the hood, I don't really think he's far behind an Edwin Diaz type. I mean, really under the hood is where like the fastball velo is absurd. Limits hard contact. He's an extreme ground ball pitcher, strikeout, whiff, chase, all above average, borderline elite. Really, I think that this is more of a situation of this is Duran's job to lose, and so far he has not shown anything worth moving him out of that role. So I do think that Jax is still an elite option in Holds leagues. I think the under the hood suggests there's some positive regression to come his way. I'm not really worried about his slow-ish start by his terms, but yeah, I think this is Duran by a good bit for me.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't pose it to
imply
that Jax was going to take over the job. For me, I thought it was interesting because I think Jax could somewhat comfortably strike out him, if that's a term. And he's going to probably lead the league in hold. So I think there's value there. And it was just interesting to see if I could get anybody to pick an actual setup guy instead of the filter. But I failed at that.
So, well, you fail at most things, Rich. So. All right, so I got a quick one to close this out. Because saves can be so random, as we know, you talked about this earlier, Owen. It's just a category with volatility baked into it. So I'm going to give you guys Emilio Pagan, the out of nowhere closer for the Reds, who has I think 12 saves, if I remember, 11 or 12 saves, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Versus the entire Detroit Tigers' best record in baseball bullpen. You can pick anybody you want from that bullpen, but that's the thing. You got to pick one guy from that bullpen versus Emilio Pagan. And that's the most ridiculous thing, I think. That is a perfect encapsulation of good luck picking saves guys. So what do you got?
It's Emilio Pagan for me. I mean, looking at it from a dynasty perspective, I think Tyler Holden was elite last year. This year hasn't quite been the same story, but I still think there's some long-term upside there. But yeah, I mean, I'll take the guy who's getting saves versus the closer carousel, to put it generously, or whatever Detroit has going on over there. But so yeah, I mean, this is Pagan for me. I mean, to me, he's maybe that unsexy, this isn't 2019 anymore type of guy, but he's the guy who's out there getting results. So yeah, that's it's Pagan for me. I would take him over anybody in the Tigers bullpen currently in redraft.
Yep. So Rich,
I was going to call back to that 2019 season as well, that magical summer in Tampa Bay. So he had a pretty good run there. And I look probably 2 or 3 times a week at roster resource for the Tigers to be like, who the hell is worthwhile? And I can't find anyone. So it's going to be Pagan. I like at some point in time Graham Ashcraft in that bullpen, but we'll see.
Yeah, or Lewis May.
Go
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, if before we leave, if I could leave the audience with a couple of dynasty buys of mine that I
please, that sounds great.
I would love to. Okay, so first off, if you're not following me on X, you should. I feel like I put out some good stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Kidding.
No. Yeah. My first is Addison Barger with the Blue Jays. I posted this today, but under the hood, dated darling, 361 expected weighted on base average, 286 expected batting average, 507 expected slugging, 56.3 hard hit percentage, 14% plus barrel rate. Bat speed is elite. Zone contact at 88.6%. That's very, very good in my opinion for a guy who can get you 25 plus home runs with that power. 80% contact rate. The BABIP has been low so far. A strikeout rate around 20% and sub 10% swinging strike percentage. That very respectable numbers. I think really the tools are there for maybe a Jordan Westburg type player in fantasy. Above average speed, but not going to steal a ton of bases. But a guy who can give you a solid average, good OBP, and 20 to 25-ish home runs. So Addison Barger is one for me, and then maybe a bit of a sleeper one. But sorry, go ahead.
I want to piggyback on Addison Barger just because Rich and I both love Addison Barger, and Rich barely beat me to him on the wire in our home league. But Barger, I had a conversation with Thomas Nestico at TJ Stats, who's another great Twitter follow if you play fantasy baseball or just like baseball in general. And he was a guest on the show a while back as well. But I had a conversation with him just via direct message not too long ago about I think Addison Barger has Ben Rice at third base potential. I agree with that. Hits the piss out of the ball and won't play a lot against lefties, but man, that guy just absolutely terrorizes the baseball. So
I would say another one, I guess, with his tool set that kind of stands out for me is maybe like thinking at it from like a guy, I feel like Rice, he's more of a power producer. The average will be solid. Sure. He's not going to give you speed, but I'm looking at it as maybe of who people want Noelvi Marte to become is what I think Barger can be. I mean, with Marte, the under the hood didn't look great. He finally was showing some promise this year, but I think Barger really is a guy, he can give you double-digit steals. The average is going to be solid. The OBP is going to be solid. There's fun power combo there, with some really intriguing under-the-hood data. So, and then my second one, this is a name that, I feel like is very underrated, but I feel like can be a very solid outfielder for fantasy, and that's Tirso Ornelas with the Padres. He made his brief MLB debut this season. Horrible on paper, 71 average, 188 on base percentage, 71 slugging, but under the hood, things actually look really promising. And, I would encourage people not to look past this, but 90.5 mile per hour average EV, 41.7 hard hit, near 89% zone contact, near 78% out of zone contact, 85.2 contact percentage with a 6.5 swing strike percentage. This to me is somebody who can become a Brandon Nimmo type player in fantasy. So maybe not that sexy, like, guy you want, leading your outfield, but I think can be a very solid number 3 or number 4 outfielder in 5 outfielder leagues. So yeah, Tirso Ornelas is another one for me. I feel like he lost a lot of shine, lost a lot of eyes after that debut, but I would look a little beyond that. And I do think he can be a very solid player.
Yeah, I like that one. I tend to favor the, I don't want to call him post hype because he didn't really have any hype in the first place, but Tirso Ornelas, he's 25 years old, had a lot of success in the Mexican League, and then came back stateside. And, his competition in left field is like Rich and Jason Hayward, and Rich is actually leading the competition. I think he gets another crack at that spot before too terribly long. So I like those calls, man. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Any other parting thoughts or anything? Or we do have one closing segment, but you probably don't want to be part of it on because it's
I do have one more thing.
Sure, please.
Yeah. I'm done with the Paul Skeens mock trades on X. I don't want to see him anymore. I want him to go. I want him gone. Like,
why didn't we start with this?
I think it's a ridiculous premise that
who is driving this?
The Pirates are going to trade their ace, the top dynasty pitcher, arguably you can make an argument the best pitcher in the league, in my opinion, long term, with 5.5 years of control. And that, I was seeing Braves fans that are like, we're not going to trade Drake Baldwin and AJ Smith-Shawver for him. Are you kidding? That's not even the starting point. Like, right. I don't want to see it anymore. It's not happening. Come back to me in 2 years, maybe. But right now, like, they're going to make the most of those Paul Skeens bobblehead nights. As bad as that team is, Paul Skeens is not going anywhere at this deadline or even this offseason for that matter. So I'm done with it. Also, I think the Juan Soto discourse is pretty stupid too.
Yep.
No reason to panic on him. It's really funny how, I see kind of I see the body language arguments. I understand the criticisms from the Subway series. Not hustling, but really, the reality is he is the same, in my opinion, elite hitter that he has been in the past. Under the hood is still right there in line with past seasons. I mean, I saw, I believe it was Eno Saris talking about the bat speed drop, but power metrics are still really good. I think, it really amazes me, how like, now people are like, should I like sell Juan Soto? No, it's still 26 years old and, still a top dynasty outfielder.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally agree. I wanted to just mention the Paul Skeens thing. People we've become, because I mean, this is a fantasy baseball show, but we've become so fantasy centric, especially on Twitter or, when they're in the general discourse or whatever, that the idea of like the Pirates want to sell tickets, right? They want to put butts in this. They want people watching their games on TV, all that kind of stuff. Like money matters. Like,
that's the one guy making them money. Plain and simple.
Right, exactly. And Ben Clemens,
I think you could argue he's the most marketable young star in the league. I mean,
could be,
well, you've got Libby Gunn girlfriends, but like, I think that, ownership knows this and the rest of the league knows this, is the one day that the Pirates are going to sell out games is on those Paul Skeens promo nights.
Yeah. The Ben Clemens of Fangraphs mentioned in his chat this week that if the Pirates were to be, he's the same kind of thing. I'm sick of the trade scenarios, whatever. If the Pirates were to trade Skeens, they could go ahead and just burn down PNC Park because they wouldn't need the seats anymore. So,
yeah.
yeah.
No, and I think also just from a quantity standpoint, and maybe people are going to disagree with this, but I think you are looking at near double the Juan Soto package is what a hypothetical trade
Yeah.
would cost. And
Yep.
really looking around the league, there are very few teams, if any, that can part with that kind of ammunition.
Yep, I agree. So, Rich, I know you're the biggest Paul Skeens fan on the planet. You want to
I love Paul Skeens. No, I totally agree. I think it's ridiculous. I actually thought it was ridiculous when they were talking about this last in season with Garrett Crochet. Now they ended up trading him and they got a decent package for him. But I think the hardest thing to get on your real baseball team is an ace starting pitcher that's under team control. So
especially when you look at the starting pitching market, to have like
the discourse that comes up to all of a sudden be like, yeah, you got to move this guy is like, what? What?
Right. Yeah. Right. Doesn't make any sense. Well, anyway, all right. Owen, thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And good discussion, guys. So
we'll let you get back to your studies. Yeah.
Yeah. Hope that helped with some of your pitcher debates you've been having recently. And
no, it's great. It's great stuff.
Again, go out there and buy Addison Barger and Tirso Ornelas in your deeper dynasty leagues.
Appreciate it, bud.
Love the tip. Thank you.
Right, we'll talk soon. Rich, I'm going to conclude. Thanks again, Owen. Rich, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with a new and exciting, I talked to you about this earlier that you're not real pleased with, recurring segment that we're going to have to wrap up the Two Guys One Roto show every week.
You got to have a banner to work on that. Yeah.
Or like an intro, like some music or whatever. Yeah, but anyway, but it's going to be, gently dubbed the Shit on Royce Lewis segment. And so we started this last week with
you were workshopping a few different ones. I didn't know.
Yes.
When we landed on. Okay. All right.
In a 15 team or smaller league, last week we said, who would you rather roster? Anybody who you would realistically put on your roster or Royce Lewis? And we more or less agreed it's anybody you'd realistically put on your roster because Royce Lewis doesn't do one thing, which is play baseball games. And so anyway, so this week I came up with a new fun fact about Royce Lewis. Cam Smith was drafted last year. And in the first round, I don't remember what pick, but whatever he was high draft pick. And it was drafted as a third baseman, was obviously playing right field for the Astros out of necessity. Cam Smith again was drafted last year. Royce Lewis was drafted 8 years ago. And Cam Smith has played 129 fewer career games than Royce Lewis. So there's that. So this has been the Shit on Royce Lewis segment brought to you by Dave Whitcomb being an asshole.
How many games? Wait, he can't close that gap this year. It's going to be at least a next year achievement, I think.
He can't close. He can't altogether close the gap this year, but he can.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, he can shorten the gap this year, and he probably will.
Yeah.
So yeah, Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis wants, and this is look. I like Royce Lewis, and I think he is the best. He's not Anthony Rendon, who's like just happy to not play baseball games and collect paychecks. But
you found the guy that I wouldn't take over Royce Lewis.
Right, yeah, right. There you go. Well, I said anybody you'd realistically roster. Yeah. But I'm sure Royce Lewis has the best of intentions. He's just, unfortunately, not made to stay on the baseball field, and so I don't see the point in rostering him. So, and by the way, also over the last calendar year, I believe he has an 84 WRC plus. So when he is playing, he's not good. So, so besides those two minor things of not playing and not being good when you're playing, he's great. So anyway. Rich, any parting thoughts?
No, another good show. Like the conversation. And hope to see you next time.
Yep. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.